A very good afternoon to you. My name is Ania Fampo and this is Good Afternoon Ghana. Today we're turning our cameras on the area of rents and its issues. And of course, there are some that you may want us to, ask questions about, and especially that has to do with government promise in, coming or intervening as far as rent is concerned. We'll be asking questions about how far that promise has gone. What is the situation of your rent today? And to help us understand some of the questions that we'll throw at Richard Achampong is the scheme manager. He's a scheme manager, and we'll be talking about the National Rental Assistance Scheme, how sustainable it is and its progress. He was earlier on, offering something private before government collaborated with him. When he comes on the platform, he will tell us a lot more what he was doing before he fizzled into the state of the National Rental Assistance Scheme. We'll tell you more after this break. Welcome back to the program. It's Good Afternoon Ghana, and I earlier on told you that we are focusing on your rent issues today. Of course, we'll ask more questions about what government has been doing as far as the party government promise is concerned. And if your situation is anything that we can provide answers to, we will definitely do that. We have the person, Richard Achampong. He is a director for National Rental Assistance Scheme. National Rental Assistance Scheme, and he's joined me in the studio here. Good afternoon to you. Thank you for making time with us. Right. So you're welcome once again. I hope work is okay.
Yes.
Is it active?
It is very active.
Where you sit.
It's very, very active.
Describe the situation to me.
So, rent is a big problem for all of us. In Ghana, you have to pay rent in advance, a year or two, and you and I don't get paid 2 years of salary in advance. So coming up with this money is always a problem. And so when this scheme was announced, it had a lot of buzz to it, a lot of excitement, especially with the young people, and a lot of people are applying as we speak now.
So a lot of people are applying.
Yes.
Give me statistics of maybe a week's application.
Well, so we take about 100 applications each week from the 6 regions that we operate: Accra, Kumasi, Takoradi, Techiman, Koforidua, and Tamale. And everything is online, so you will never see anybody queued up in our offices. Everybody goes online to www.nras.gov.gh and completes a simple application form. It's a very basic application, no more difficult than a basic job employment form. We ask you to provide proof of income, pay slips, and a Ghana card. It's a requirement. Without a Ghana card, you will not qualify.
So this rent scheme, terms and conditions applied?
Yes.
Okay.
When we pay your rent,
right,
it has to come back, right?
Yeah.
Meaning you have to pay it back. So you have to be working. I know government has other programs for maybe the non-employed and for the elderly and other programs, but this is specifically for those who are working, because that money needs to come back so we can pay rent for other people.
Is it okay to ask the question when that promise was being made? All these details were not given. We're not sure, how it was going to go. And so if I come, apply, and then I know I need assistance, and I probably need assistance because I don't really work.
Right.
So there's no hope for me?
No. There may be other programs that targets the unemployed, but this specific one is strictly for those who are working, because part of the requirements is that you show proof that you are working and we can verify that you are working. You don't have to be working for the government alone or a private business. You can be self-employed, but you still have to show proof that you are working and you are making an income.
Let me read this for you. I said I was going to let you tell us what you were doing privately before
Sure.
you came into the government scheme, but let me just pull this across. This was a Ghana Web story published on Monday, the 6th of July, 26th of July 2021. It said, government yet to fulfill free rent promise, and free rent promise in quotes, 7 months after taking office. And it says that the NPP manifesto 2020 promised to give, I have the manifesto here, I'm trying to quote it, but let me just hold on, to give loans to youth to pay their rent. Dr. Bawumia said that the National Rental Scheme will be handed a seed money of 100 million Ghana cedis to set up. 7 months after being sworn into office, government is yet to fulfill its promise to citizens. Nearly a year after the promising to pay rent of Ghanaian youth in the second term, government's new patriotic party, that the NPP, is yet to fulfill the promise. Now, the NPP, in lead up to the 2020 general elections, made a number of promises which convinced many to retain them in office and hand President Akufo-Addo the final 4-year term. Significant among the youth promises were documented in the party's manifestos was given to loans to youth to pay their rent through the National Rent Assistance. Now, keep this in mind, but before you respond to it, tell me what you were doing privately. Was it rent associated?
Yes.
What you were doing privately?
Yes.
Tell us about it before we came into the national scheme.
What we were doing prior to this was, called Rent Masters. We basically did the same thing. We paid your rent, but you also had to show proof that you were working. And obviously, it's private money, so the money also has to come back.
Okay.
The difference was that we were charging, interest at a higher rate, right? Because if you go to a bank today to get a loan, you will pay somewhere between 30, 35, I don't know what their going rate is, but it was much higher than what it is now.
Really?
Yes.
So your higher rate is about 40%, 50%?
Well, we were charging in my private
Your
business.
private business.
Yes. We had to make a profit.
I get.
Right? And we borrow from, private banks to also do this type of business. So we had to make a profit. Now, with consultation with the government, they basically said that it was too high. The government cannot allow its citizens to pay interest of this rate and be happy with it. So the arrangement was that government will, put in the money and then require us to charge significantly less, which is the 12% annually that we are currently charging for the National Rental Assistance Scheme, and make it affordable for those who are working.
Okay, so what was your rate?
Well, my rate was 35%.
Was it 35 or 40?
Was 35%. It was actually 35%, yes.
But that wouldn't allow you to make profits, because the bank loans you'd be taking was almost around the same rate.
Well, yeah, we used, some private funding, but, if you had to match it with the bank loan, then ours would be much lower. But we used private funding, and we were able to charge around 35%. But again, our requirements were much steeper. It was stringent. You needed to work for a good company. We required a lot of references, and we wanted to make sure that when we paid your rent, we will get it back. Because it's a little difficult trying to collect, in Ghana. So we were very strict in who we selected, and we were very strict in that. But it worked for us. The solution worked. The customers that we paid rent for, they were happy. And we had a very unique way of doing it. We didn't give you the rent, the tenant, the money, because, some businesses even give its employees rent allowance. But that money never ends up paying rent, right? Because the money is not enough anyway. So we made sure that the money went to where it was needed. We paid the rent directly to the landlord.
So, knowing that you were a private company, you were making profits, why would you decide that I'll leave this and come and support government, knowing that government's percentage was way lower, and you're not going to make any profit from it, or you wanted to work for government?
Well, it's not that I wanted to work for government. I wanted to see the solution work, right? At a higher scale, at a bigger scale. Because, believe me, we couldn't, the private business wasn't doing as much as the government can do. Obviously, the government has more resources than we can. But, I wanted to make sure that the solution works and that people's rent are getting paid. Obviously, I would be compensated for doing the work, not as much as doing it privately, but, we are solving a generational problem. Rent advance has been around for a very long time. Many governments come in power and they try to solve it. They solve it by building more affordable housing. They solve it, by instituting different programs, but it's still around, right?
Yeah.
Now, this solution that we came up with is that we pay the rent directly to the landlord and the tenant pay us back. It's like a bridge solution. You stand in the middle, the tenant on one side, and then the landlord is on the other side. And then once you are able to do that, you effectively solve the rent advance problem because the tenant will never have to pay rent advance again. And then the landlord still gets to collect his 1 year or 2 years rent advance. So it's a win-win for all, basically.
Right. So who approached who? You to government, or government approached you?
Well, somebody saw my program and then asked me to do a demonstration of how it works. And I did it. I met a lot of government officials, and there were a lot of questions, and I was able to explain every little bit of it. But along the way, everybody had the problem with how much interest I was charging.
This was when? When were you approached?
This is in the early years after the elections. So 2002, was it?
2002. That was after election 2020. Because this was
sorry. After election 2020, yes.
After election 2020.
Yes.
Because the promise was a 2020
2020
promise.
manifesto. So yes, it was right after the elections.
Okay. So it means government made a promise before approaching you.
Yes.
Government hadn't done the groundwork before making this promise.
Well, so how do you solve this problem? Somebody may look at my solution or the Rentmaster's solution and say this is not the solution to go with, right? So they wanted to solve the problem. They may have evaluated other solutions, but this solution, this bridge solution, is a win-win for all. Basically, you stay in the middle and you satisfy both parties, right? The tenant gets to pay monthly. The landlord gets his advance rent, and that is a solution that we were actually implementing, on the open market, and it was working.
So currently, is government engaging in a 2-year advance per your work? Because you're in charge of the
Yes, we do,
scheme.
yes.
So you pay 2 years advance.
Yes.
For persons who need the help.
Yes.
Right? And then you give them the interest, of course, they know what they have to do.
Yes.
Why are we doing that? Because by law, we're not supposed to do that.
So the rent issue is very complicated. You have to stand back and really get to appreciate the depth of the problem that we're in. Right? First of all, we don't have enough affordable housing, number one. Number two, the right to housing is almost a human rights kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
Everybody needs to have a place to live and be comfortable, okay?
Yeah.
Now, we have a rent law that says the landlord, the property owner, the current rent law, that's what I'm referring to, can basically say, I don't want to give you my apartment anymore because my niece or my relative is coming back from somewhere in US or somewhere and I need it back. Okay, so what that means is the landlord has a lot of power. That is what the law is.
Yeah.
Okay? the law also says that the landlord cannot demand, okay? But the tenant can offer.
Yeah.
Now,
So
the
in a
National
situation-
Rental Assistance Scheme is in the position of the tenant because we are the tenant. The National Rental Assistance Scheme basically rents from the landlord. The landlord gives the scheme a tenancy agreement for a duration, a year or 2 years. And then what we do is we sublet that same property to the eventual tenant who is going to live in it.
Okay.
So the scheme is a tenant to the landlord. And under the current
Okay.
law, that is allowed.
Okay. So the scheme is the intermediary between the landlord and the needy person.
Yes,
So the scheme will do the upfront payment to the landlord.
yes,
And then this person that needs help, even if you can't pay 6 months, the scheme will accept the 6 months. Even if you can pay some amount of money, the scheme will accept, right?
No, the
Or the scheme doesn't accept any amount of money. I know
If
that
the
it's
landlord-
for people. I know that's for people who need help,
Yes.
who don't have the money.
Yes.
But if I come, for example,
Yes.
and the landlord is expecting 2 years, I have money for only 1 year.
yes,
Can I come to the scheme? The scheme will do the 2 years advance. I can give the scheme 1 year advance.
we are very flexible.
You're flexible
Yes,
that way.
we're
Okay,
very
that's what I
flexible.
wanted
Yes,
to
we're
find
very
out.
flexible.
Yeah.
The whole idea is to make it affordable,
Yeah.
right? If
But
you have,
but it's still not affordable. If you look at how we're going about it, in the sense that the scheme is still being very operating illegally. If the landlord is demanding 2 years and we still go ahead and pay 2 years, well, we
No,
know
the
that
landlord is not
the rent
demanding-
law doesn't.
the landlord is not demanding 2 years.
But the scheme is offering.
The scheme offers the 2-year advance. But look, what if this is how it works? In the real life, this is how it works, okay? Now, if I come to you and you are the landlord, and then I say I have 6 months
Yeah.
of rent, you can easily tell me, okay, I'm not renting the apartment anymore, or my niece will use it next week, so I don't need your money. In the back end, they will easily take somebody else's money, and the place is rented, and then you have deprived the other person, the right to rent that property. Okay, if we go very hard on the landlords and they withhold their rental properties, guess what? We make the scarcity of the affordable housing worse.
I'm sure you have been in this housing industry for quite a while,
Yes,
so you understand how it works.
yes,
I haven't. I haven't learned anything about the housing industry. What I know is what a normal Ghanaian knows, that I
Right.
need a place to rent and
Yes.
I rent it. But with my little knowledge, I can tell you that government schemes are just rather making things worse for the country. If we describe or explain that, well, because house owners or landlords have the rights to what they do with their homes,
right,
it means that, well, if they tell you they can't take 6 months, you can't do anything about it. That's us throwing our hands in despair. The ones who are supposed to implement the law are throwing their hands in despair, just as the people will do. That's my understanding.
Well, it's not. It's
Because
not,
if we have a scheme
Yes.
that's working with landlords,
Yes.
I expect that even the scheme is representing government, sure?
Yes,
And
definitely.
the scheme should be able to put in another monitoring something,
Mm-hmm.
radar, to make sure that if landlord says, as my child is coming to stay in, we made the laws. So why are we letting it look like, well, we made the laws, but it's difficult to implement?
It's not the implementation.
It is what?
It's not the implementation. It is the rent law was written, the current rent law was written some 60 years ago.
Yeah.
Gave a lot of powers
Yeah.
to the landlord. I understand that there is a new one that is in consideration to be passed. Okay.
Yeah.
And that has some changes, built in. But as it is now, okay, the landlord has a lot of leeway. They have a lot of power. And then we are dealing with a product that is in very short supply. Very, very short supply. Now, if you try to enforce the 6 months rule, all the landlord has to say is that this is not even up for rent anymore. You cannot even prosecute because he's just basically withdrawn the property from renting, or basically said that my relative or my son is going to use it. So how do you even enforce it? You know, it says that in the law, but you know, enforcing it is almost impossible. It is very difficult. It can be enforced, but I can't tell you how.
For
Because
60 years.
for 60
We've
years,
had this rent control laws, and we have not been able to implement it. And it gets more difficult, where
Yes.
government is now putting on structures it calls, say, affordable housing, which you know that affordable houses the government have been putting on, the average Ghanaian cannot afford. You go to state houses, if, for example, let's go to Sakumono, I live close there, so I can make that reference.
Right.
Sakumono flats, MP's flats, and we've left it to deteriorate. So government in its capacity is putting up buildings,
Yes.
but is not maintaining. Some are more expensive. Look at what we've done to Saglemi housing.
Yes.
And there are still people who are struggling for houses, and government says that I'm putting money in a scheme,
yes,
and the scheme will help you, you know, go for rent, while we put on structures we call affordable houses, but we'll let it go rotten. This is the kind of governance
Look,
we are experiencing. I mean, that's my I don't know, normal observation of how we are just managing things.
I am not in power.
I know,
or I
but
don't
you're
have
working with government.
I
so-
am working in consultation with government.
No,
you know.
you're working with government.
And you know, I don't have I'm not an expert in speaking to some of these things that you've
Yeah,
raised.
but that's why I asked you. I'm
Right.
sure you've been in the housing, you know.
Yes,
industry
I
for a
do,
while,
and I have an
exactly.
idea.
And you get what I'm trying to put
Of
across,
course,
right?
you know, I do.
Right.
You know, but you know, we have a lot of challenges. We do have a lot of challenges as a country, right? And we have to solve them one at a time. You know, we need a lot of serious people to get around the table and tackle these problems one at a time. And now, what we are doing with the rent in this rent space
Yeah.
is that we know that, you know, our citizens have to come up with 2 years upfront payment for rent. That is the problem that we are tackling.
Yeah.
Now there are other problems within the housing sector. I
Yeah.
am not, you know, naive
I know
about
you
that.
cannot really speak to.
Right. You know, but the problem that we've identified to solve with this scheme is that, you know, any Ghanaian who is working and can show proof of, you know, making an income can have their rent paid in monthly installments. Rent is paid in monthly everywhere you go, except Ghana and maybe a few other countries.
Right. So we're having a discussion with Richard Achampong. He is a director for National Rental Assistance Scheme. Let's go to the people who've been applying. I asked you earlier how many people have been applying for about within a week, and you
Yeah.
said for a week you can estimate averagely 100 people.
Yes.
100 people. What's the percentage of responding to these 100 people?
So
Averagely?
we've paid rent for 1,105. Out of 1,105, about 15% of them rented for 1 year.
Okay, hold on. Well, I read a story from Ghana Web.
Yes.
And I told you it was published 7 months after 2020.
Yes.
At that time, government still hadn't done anything about the rental scheme.
Yes.
Do I take it that your engagement was after maybe the story was published? This was 26th of July 2021.
Well, I'm not sure what date that is, but there is something in there that says free. You know, this is not free.
Yeah.
You know, it's wrong.
Yeah.
You know, but we've been, you know, I mentioned earlier that we had been discussing this for a very long time, before it was announced. You know, so that article,
Before it was announced in 2020.
yes.
2020.
No, before it was announced in 2023 or last year. Was it?
Yeah.
No, this year, 2020.
No, but the rent scheme was
Yes.
a campaign promise in 2020.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it took us this many months or years to be able to outdoor it.
Okay,
right?
so it was outdoored in 2023.
January 2023.
Right.
You know,
So-
because there was so much to know. You know, this was new to a lot of people, and it's still new to a lot of people now. You know, did you know that rent is due on the first of the month? Many people think that rent is due at the end of the month, right? So this is even the one of the common questions. But there was so much to learn. Everybody, including government officials, so much to learn, right? And then so many questions. Will this work? Okay, will this be able to solve the problem? And we went through all the questions, a lot of presentations and discussions and questions, and at the end of the day, everybody around the table believed that it will work. Now, 6-7 months down the line after it was outdoored, I can tell you from this chair that it is working.
It's working.
Every single person that we have paid rent for since March pays their rent every month.
Okay. We're having a rent discussion on the national rental scheme. Let me take a breather. When I come back, we'll ask for the details of persons who have also applied and benefited from it. We'll be talking more, and the seed the government assured that it was going to put in the fund. We'll be back shortly. Welcome back to the program. We're having a chat with Richard Acheampong, Director for National Rental Scheme Assistance Scheme, and we're talking about that promise that was made by the government in 2020. How is it operating today? Let's refresh your minds on what the Vice President then, Dr. Bawumia, during the delivery of the manifesto said about the rental scheme.
Very happy occasion today.
The housing sector is one of the sectors that we are, God willing, going to focus a lot on in the next term. There are three components of our housing policy. It is clear that there are a lot of youth who, when they finish school, just trying to rent accommodation is a big problem. And why is it? The large demands for rent allowance, sometimes up to 2 years demand. But someone who is finished school and just starting a job doesn't have those savings to pay all these huge demands for rent allowance. The landlords, on the other hand, have gotten used to asking, even though the law says 6 months, they've gotten used to asking for 2 years and insist on it because they are saying that they don't know if the tenant will run away or not, so they want to collect it upfront. So there is a market failure. There's a market failure between what the tenants want and what the landlords want. And this is why government has decided to come in and bridge this market failure by setting up a national rental assistance scheme. And under this scheme, if you have a job and we can deduct regularly from your income, under this scheme, the National Rent Assistance Scheme will give you a loan to pay your rent allowance. But we are paying this not to you, but to the landlord. And then we will deduct monthly as you would normally pay. So we are bridging this. You need to have a formal employment, which will allow us or guaranteed.
So I guess the Vice President was not far from, what is being practiced now, as explained by Richard, right? So you said so far for a year after the scheme was launched. Say about a year now, because it was launched
7 months.
in January. It's been about
January 31st.
January 31st.
Yes.
Okay, so about 8 months.
Yes.
How many people have applied so far and have benefited? Applied and benefited.
People that have applied. Give me 1 second. It's excess of 5,000 applications, current applications in the pool.
Excess of 5,000.
Excess of 5,000 current applications. And then 1,105 have had their rent paid. And it's a rolling enrollment. You know, every day we pay somebody's rent. You know, so you know, at the end of the month, we'll announce new numbers, and that 1,100 would go up more.
So what's the lowest you have paid and what's the highest you've paid?
The highest we are bound to pay is 1,500 cedis a month.
1,500 a month?
Yes.
That's the highest you're about to pay.
The highest monthly rent that we can pay.
And the lowest has been what?
The lowest, we don't have a limit, a lower, but the lowest that we've paid is 80 cedis a month.
80 cedis a month.
Yes.
In what area? The 80 cedis a month was in which area?
Big farm.
Big farm. And then 1,000 likely to be in which area?
Dansuman.
1,500.
Yes, Dansuman.
Dansuman, we're paying 1,500. Dansuman.
Yes.
Why? Why?
Well,
Why is it some estate? I don't know.
well, rents have gone up significantly, just like everything else.
So-
And this is just a two-bedroom apartment. You know, two-bedroom.
Two-bedroom apartment, a person is paying 1,500
Yes.
in Dansuman.
Yes.
Say a normal area. It's not an estate.
It's a nice apartment. It's an apartment.
My producers are whispering in my ears that it's true.
Yes.
So, are you affected by inflation?
We all are.
So, are you?
Personally or the scheme?
Who are you behaving like? Someone I don't want to mention the name. So, is the scheme
Yes.
is the scheme affected?
Yes.
The scheme is affected.
Yes.
So, from January, end of January till now, we have been rent has been increasing, and it's been affecting the scheme.
Well, it decreases how many. It definitely decreases the number of people that we can pay rent for, right? Because the money is limited, and then as rent goes up, that money, the power of that money reduces.
Reduces,
That is the
definitely.
function of inflation. But rent generally has gone up everywhere, and you know, places like Dansuman and Awoshi and some of these areas are no exception. You know, rent has gone up significantly, and you know, we are all.
Did government put in the 100 million Ghana cedis as seed money?
No, the seed money that was announced was 30 million.
That was announced was
Yes.
30 million. Are
In
you,
the-
are you
in-
sure?
in-
Government announced 100 million
Well,
Ghana cedi seed.
some of the articles may have stated 100 million, and I'm not sure where that number came from. But, you know, this program was allocated with, 30 million for the implementation of the National Rental Assistance Scheme.
So government put in 30 million
Yes,
seed in the fund,
yes,
and that's what you've been using.
yes,
So if let's say about out of 5,000, as you say, right?
yes,
About over 1,000 people have benefited from the scheme.
yes,
The highest we're going to pay now is about 1,500 a month. And if we're paying 2 years of 1,500, we can imagine how much we're paying.
86,000.
If we're paying 8 TCDs per month, that is about 2 years of 80 CDs. 2 years of 80 CDs multiplied by 1,000 people. Is a fund not finished?
No, it's not. Well, it's a revolving fund.
How do you revolve it?
Those who are paying, I told you that everybody has paid since March, and that money that is paid goes back into the pool of money, and then it revolves around, right? So, the nature of the revolving money allows us to pay more than we would normally do. That's one. And then the second point is that, we have on the upper spectrum the 1,500, and at the lower spectrum 80 cedis a month, but in the middle the average rent is just 500 cedis.
Okay.
So it's a distribution, right? And so the mean is still 500 cedis a month.
Yeah.
And so for 2 years, it's about 12,000 cedis, right? And so if
So let's
you-
say if mean is 500 cities,
Yes.
and for 2 years it's 12,000.
Yes.
And okay, you're saying that as revolving, fund, the people really pay back.
Yes. Everybody pays.
Are you sure?
Yes.
What's the proof? Give us proof of those who have benefited from the rent,
Look, I don't know.
from the scheme. I don't know how you can give us some statistics without necessarily showing their faces. I mean, we can have
The scheme reports to
Yeah.
the Ministry of Works and Housing.
right.
And every month we report on our performance. And, everybody pays. I mean, we have some beneficiaries who work for the government. They get deducted from the controller. We have, private businesses from Metro TV, all the TV stations, private businesses. And, we do bank standing order with their banks. And every month, in the beginning of the month, the payments come in. Salaries delay a lot in Ghana,
Yeah.
right? And so those who are not able to pay on the first of the month or the second of the month, it's probably because they haven't received their salaries. And they call our offices and say, hey, my salary has not come in yet. But as soon as it comes in, they pay.
How do you do the payment? How have you done the structure? Do you deduct from their bank accounts, or they have to get the cash and come to you and
No,
pay
we don't
upfront?
take cash. They send it by mobile money. They deposit it into our bank accounts. The standing order deducts directly into the scheme's account. The controller deducts from their salary and deposits it into the scheme's account.
Okay, so we're connecting to their accounts.
Yes.
And we do the deductions
Yes.
as and when money drops.
Yes.
But what
You
if
know-
it's not salary? It's something else.
What do you mean?
What if their money that's dropping in accounts is not salary?
Oh, it has to be salary because we verify to make sure that you are working.
Anyway, once you have recommended the bank, that's your own business, right?
Yes, I mean, we make sure that you are working.
Yeah.
And
I'm
that-
saying that once they have recommended that account
Yes.
to you,
Yes.
and you're deducting from source,
Yes,
that's their own business.
exactly.
Okay.
But we just don't approve people based on gift, right? Like you said, what if the money is not their salary?
Yeah.
If you're receiving gift, you cannot use gift as proof of income. That's a gift. It's not income. And so you have to show us that you are working. And then we have to see that salary entries in your bank statement. And then it has to be, your rent has to be less than 30% of your salary. So, after your rent, you have some money to pay your other bills. But we do it well. We make sure we make sure that we select those who are in a position to pay. Doesn't matter what work you do. We have security guards, we have doctors, we have janitors from hotels, but everybody pays because the rent is 30% of their salary, so there is enough left to cater for other things.
But I'm worried about you have to show proof of working. We have nurses, we
Yes.
have doctors,
Yes.
we have which other professions?
Janitors.
We have people who have skills
Yes.
in certain areas, but don't have the job. So, for example, nurses are staying at home. We have about 3 years, 4 years backlog of nurses staying at home. And because they're not working, they don't qualify to be
Right.
on the scheme. Is this their fault?
It's
I'm
not.
worried about them because
It's-
when the vice president was announcing the scheme, he didn't make exceptions for unemployed.
He did not. I mean, he did. He actually stated that you have to be working. I heard him say that many times. And look, you cannot design a scheme or a program to fit all, right? It's a recipe for disaster. It will fail.
Oh, really?
Yes, because
Then SHS will fail.
well, SHS is different.
No,
Right, it
it's-
doesn't-
It's still a scheme and a program for all.
Yes, but those who came up with it and those who designed it, they considered all these things. It targets one specific area, and that is education. This program targets rent. Now, the government can have another program and say, let's pay rent for those who are not working. And then it is understood that the money will not come back. It is a social,
Targeted program.
exactly. And we all understand that we're giving it away for free. But this is not for free. This is solving your advanced problem. But you still have to pay rent, and everybody's happy to pay monthly. Look, before the scheme, right, our affordability was based on how much bulk advance money you can come up with. 10,000, 15,000, 30,000, whatever it is. That is how we calculated affordability, because it tells you that you can afford this house because you have 30,000 in your hand. Now,
But just the bulk money you can come up with is not enough. Maybe how often you come up with such bulk money.
yes, that too is a
The
problem.
rate at which
Yes.
you have that bulk money.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But now you're.
So do you consider that too?
Well, we are happy to.
Or someone can just tell you, oh, I can come up with 2,000 and you take their word for it.
We discourage even that you bring money up front.
Yeah, no, I'm saying that if someone just tells you that, oh, well, I can raise bulk money of 2,000 in a month,
Yes, no,
and you believe that,
we don't do
so
that.
what do you do to prove that is right or wrong?
We ask for pay slips, and then we ask for your bank statements. Your salary amount on your pay slip has to correspond to the entries in your bank statement to show that that 2,000 was not just a one-time amount, but is consistent. We take 3 months of your bank statement, and we analyze it thoroughly.
Okay, so we're wrapping up, but what are the materials or documents you take for someone who wants to apply?
1, you have to be 18 years old.
Okay.
2, you have to be a Ghanaian. You have to have,
Hey.
yes,
Okay.
taxpayers' money goes for
You have
Ghanaians
to
only.
be a Ghanaian.
Yes.
That's when you have the Ghana card.
No. Well, foreigners also have Ghana cards, right?
Okay, so
You have to be-
So what do you use in proving the Ghanaianness of a person?
The Ghana card has to say Ghanaian, or it doesn't have to say. If it says non-citizen card, we don't take that. You don't qualify.
So if I bring a passport, I don't qualify.
You do. You qualify, but you need to have a Ghana card. The
I know.
government.
I know the need of having
Yes.
a Ghana card. I'm saying.
If you bring
I
a
don't
passport,
have
you
a
do
Ghana
not
card
qualify.
now, and I
You
bring
don't qualify.
a passport.
You don't qualify.
I bring a driver's
You
license.
don't qualify.
I bring a birth certificate.
It's the same thing, right? You cannot open a bank account without a Ghana card. You can have all the other IDs. You cannot open a bank account without a Ghana card. It is a government policy for everybody to have a Ghana card. And so if you want to enjoy this government benefit, you need to have a Ghana card. As simple as that.
So take notes, right? You have to be 18 years and above. You have to have a Ghana card. Without a Ghana card, a passport, a birth certificate, a driver's license, a voter's ID, they all don't qualify you as Ghanaian. Must have a Ghana card. That's the sole document
The sole document.
to apply for the scholarship scheme.
Yes. And then you have to present 3 months of your bank statements and then 3 months of your pay slips
Okay, 3 months of the bank statements and pay slips.
and pay slips.
Okay, so that's for everyone. You earlier on mentioned the areas that we operate in, 6 greater cities, right?
Accra, Kumasi, Takrade, Koforidua, Techiman, and Tamale.
Okay, Techiman and Tamale. So we'll say the greater areas of these cities, right? Techiman and Tamale. That's where your offices are located. But you're also on the website.
Well, our application process is 100% online.
100% online.
100% online.
Wow. Okay, and mention the
www.nras.gov.gh.
Okay, so it's www.nras.gov.gh. Gov is gov.gh. That's if you're struggling with rent and you want government to help you. Make sure you have these documents available. Your Ghana card, your bank statement, 3 months bank statements, and proof of salary that goes through at least the bank. Then you know that you're. How do you monitor your applicants and make sure they're paying or your deductions are successful? Is it your digital system you put in place?
We do have a very robust system that sends out notifications to the applicants and the beneficiaries. If you are missing a document, you will get an SMS and maybe a phone call or an email. If you're missing, if you haven't paid your rent, you get a lot of phone calls and SMS on your phone. And, you know, they do call us back and say, my salary hasn't come in and I will pay as soon as I get it.
When that happens, what do you do?
Well, you know, in good faith, we say, okay. And they do. You know, there are beneficiaries who've paid double because their salary didn't come.
Do they have grace periods?
They do. They do. Rent is due from the 1st to the 5th of each month. And then after the 5th, then it's late. Under normal circumstances, it should be a penalty, but you know, we really don't enforce that because we want to make it affordable for everybody. And so when it's late because of salary delays, you know,
This scheme is not enforcing a lot of laws.
we are. You know,
There are penalties that the people pay. No?
They pay. You know, they pay. You know, the late fees they pay. And then sometimes it's not, you know, through the fault of their own. Your employer didn't pay you. It happens a lot. I mean, yeah. I mean, if your employer didn't pay you, you're struggling already, right? You've worked 30 days and you have no salary.
Is the salary account the sole account for deductions?
Yes.
Or I can give you optional accounts?
No,
that you
we
can
take one
deduct
account.
from.
We take one account where your salary comes in. If you have monies somewhere, you are free to deposit it into that salary account, and you know when the time comes, we'll
It will
withdraw
be
it.
deducted.
But if your employer didn't pay you because of difficulties at work, we don't want to punish you any further because you're already broke anyway.
All right. Your last words. Our time is up.
Well, I want to encourage everybody who qualifies to apply. You know, the scheme really does work. You know, sometimes I see comments on social media that says that it's fake, and it's not fake. It's real. You know, look, if rent was paid monthly, we would not have a need for the scheme. But unfortunately, it's not like that here. And so the National Rental Assistance Scheme is here to help you pay your rent. And we will do everything in our power to make sure that your rent is paid on a monthly basis.
Well, let me just read a few comments. Annie, can your guest tell us how much tax was withheld from payments to landlords if what they are saying is true? From the 80% tax, we can compute how much went into the scheme as a whole. The tax will be 8% of what is paid to the landlords. I mean, if we have a scheme of that nature, and this is almost digital, it's easy to widen the tax net through the scheme.
Of course, and it was definitely part of our discussion with government, and you know there's measures in place for that.
So it's deducted.
Well, when you receive rent as income, when a landlord receives rent, you know there is 8% rent tax, right? That a landlord has to pay. You know, it's not a withholding tax as far as I'm concerned, but it's taxable. And, you know, under normal circumstances, those in charge will do what is needed for the landlords to pay tax because, you know, it's income and they need to pay tax on it.
Okay, I know you can't give me the statistics on the taxes, but maybe on another platform we can ask those questions. It's quite an important one there. Someone says that evidence of beneficiaries and criteria used in selection of benefits because we're hearing of millions of cedis being spent already, and some of us don't know anyone who has benefited. Or is it for MPP foot soldiers? It's a question. I learned you have to make some payments to their office before they can assist you. Is it true? If yes, why? If no, why? Evidence of people who have benefited from the program. Right. Is it true that they have to make
So you
deposits
pay an application fee
of how much?
of 100 cedis.
Okay.
for your application to be processed. Now that is in place, to not overburden the system. If we don't put in a fee, everybody applies. The scheme will have to employ a lot of people to process those applications,
Yeah.
and it doesn't become sustainable. So it's a barrier to cut off those who are really in need of it.
Right.
And that's what we do to make it sustainable.
The next time we meet, we definitely will take reports of the beneficiaries so that viewers would know and let it be so much proof so that they can understand and believe that the scheme is actually active.
Yes, the scheme is real, is active. Our offices is at Jowolu traffic light right next to Ghana Commercial Bank. This is not a scheme. It's the monies that we've disbursed so far. It's huge. It's some 13 million. If you do the math, it's like I told you, it's 500 cedis a month per person. That makes it so. The government has allocated a lot of money. 30 million is a lot of money, and and it revolves. So we can pay more, and we encourage everybody who is in a position to apply. I cannot give you names of beneficiaries because of confidentiality reasons, but maybe we'll find a way for some of them to speak up on one of your show next time.
Right, we'll do that. Another time we'll do that. But thank you for making time with us. That's Richard Achampong. He's a director for the National Rental Scheme Assistance. So we've given you the website already. The application fee is 100 cedis, as he's saying. www.nras.gov.gh is the online that you can apply. It's 100% application online. Please, Digital Ghana. Really. So it's not a scam, it's a scheme, as he's saying. Next time, we'll talk more about it. Thank you for your time. My name is Ania Fampo. Thanks for watching. Good afternoon.